And we are live. It is Thursday evening, and we are back to the temporary late night slot of Trusty's late night vintage whatever. So we're not doing a sale tonight. We're just going to be live chat and a little bit of a live haul. I got some stuff in this week. Katie got some stuff this week, so she might even show some of that. And yeah, we're going to see who's joining us for our little late night session. We've got Angela's in the chat. Probably, I'm not sure. You're north of me, so I'm not sure if you're digging out as much as we are. We've got the snow plows are going in the background, so you might hear some scraping noises as we go. But so hope things aren't too bad for you, Angela. Freedy Fines has joined us, and we have a couple comments going in the chat. Freedy started early on and was asking for assistance in identifying patches, military patches. And I will say, somebody looks like they answered the question. Looks like Tiger. Thanks, Tiger, for answering the question. Google Lens is your best friend. So it is. So it's a little. I think they're trying to explain it in the chat, but we'll go ahead and show you on screen.
Google Lens is great.
What you're actually going to access, you're going to have the Google app. You can download onto your phone. I'm assuming it's available for both Android and iPhone, and it probably works the same way in both. When you open it up in the search bar, there's a little icon off to the side. There's the microphone icon, and then there's a little camera icon. Click on the camera icon, and it will give you the option of either taking a picture or pulling a picture up from your phone. So if you have the patches, you can do it live. Like you can just do the options to search with your camera, and I'm not going to be able to show you that. But when you click on that, it basically just turns your phone into a camera. And you just, basically put the patch down, take the picture of it, and it will try and figure it out. Now, sometimes it works great. Sometimes it doesn't. Patches, you probably will be pretty successful. The only thing you need to you might need to do with the Google Lens is it's going to try and figure out which part of the picture to search, and it might edit it down. So like if you've got a bunch of things on the patch, it might just pull out the hammer or whatever is in the middle. You then manually pull, and you'll see it. You manually pull it out so it tell it, no, do the entire patch. And sometimes if you just nudge it a little bit so it's not getting anything in the background, it will help focus it in. You can get slightly different results each time. So it's not always going to be perfect, but it might give you something similar. And then sometimes if you can search for that, you'll find, there's like this whole threshold. You might even find a group of people that do patches. Have you done much with patches, Katie?
I haven't, Patrick, but I was just thinking when you said that, there are a lot of groups on Facebook, yep. And I know a lot of us aren't on Facebook anymore, but the only reason I keep it is for my resource groups. And there's a lot of groups you can just type in the search bar, military patch collector, or military patches or whatever. And sometimes there's a group that will come up, and I frequent the depression glass group. I post pictures in there. People are really helpful. They're like, this is what this pattern is, or this is etch number, whatever. They're great. So, just feel out on Facebook to see if there are any groups. I also like Collectors Weekly. They're a wonderful website, and they might have a whole page on military patches. Sometimes if you search that, you can also find a good overall kind of history and collecting starting place to jump off when researching.
And it seems silly, but even if you just do an actual Google search, look at it from completely layman's terms, which maybe is all you have from the sense of the military, and just say military patch square tank. Like if there's a tank on it, or just figure out like from the simplest terms, what does it say? And, if it's got a tank on it, maybe, put tank in quotes so that it makes sure it keeps that. And you might get lucky. And I've done that, and sometimes you do have to almost back yourself away. Like you may know it's Cambridge glass, but you don't know the name of the etch. Well, somebody else might have figured out the name of the etch, but not connected to Cambridge glass. So if you try and do a search for Cambridge, you're going to actually inadvertently limit yourself. It can be a very strange rabbit hole to go down, but the research to me is the most fun. And those Facebook groups are absolutely a great way to go. So Tiger, thanks for helping her out. So Tiger is here tonight. Barbie is joining. Thanks so much for hopping on tonight, Barbie. So Barbie and I were panelists on Beth's channel earlier this evening. Beth from Carolina Princess Sweet Treats and Pretties. And so it's the first time that Barbie and I worked together. And we talked about the pros and cons and the perils and the benefits of working in person in working with in a physical booth, antique shop, vintage mall. Barbie has a kind of an interesting story with her physical location, because she said it was described more of a mantiques mall, it's a lot of masculine items. And she was asked to come in because she had maybe a little bit more of the feminine touch, but was still funky enough to attract the audience that came through. So she had some much better success in her shop than I had with mine. But I'm still a strong believer in having a physical location. I hope to have one again. But if you did not catch that, that was on Carolina Princess Sweet Treats and Pretties. Watched about an hour. We were on there about an hour and a half, and there were a lot of good things in the chat that people were sharing of their experiences as well. So wait until the live chat is processed, which will be several more hours. But so if you watch the video, you can watch the video, but you might want to watch with the live chat.
It was a really interesting episode, and I highly recommend checking it out. Lots of great information.
Thank you so much. And Tim, I think, was there also. So Tim Tiafane coming in from Canada. Thanks for joining us again. We've got Carrie coming in from Austin, Texas. And she's doing the same thing with the different word combinations. As simple as that seems, people don't even think to do it. And sometimes even doing it within eBay. eBay, in some cases, has an almost more robust search engine than I think sometimes Google does, because it's very specific into the keywords that all of the vendors are trying to list. And so if you try and do it within Google, within eBay, and you don't see any success there, make sure you switch over to the completed and the sold history, because you might find those search terms might show up in something that was sold.
Yep.
And so that'll give you an extra 90 days worth of research. So definitely a good way to look home. So yeah, the roads, depending on where Angela and I are in the Chicago area, and depending on where you were, ironically enough, the farther south you went was the worst. So I'm a little bit south of Angela, but south of me, when you looked at the map, they just had a big banner that said blizzard conditions. It's like,
oh yeah,
wow, okay. So we were not quite that bad. We probably ended up with maybe 4 inches. So not too bad, but it was coming down pretty heavy for a while. I mean, it was basically 4 inches that fell within like a 3-hour period. So it was coming down pretty fast and heavy.
As I sit in my 70 degrees.
Yeah, shut up. Shut the sun, just enjoying the heat. We have Louie barking at the air conditioning and the sprinklers.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have that problem here. So let's see. We'll have that problem in the summer, but nothing going on here. So we got Val M has also joined us in the chat. All in the Attic Treasures has joined us. Thanks so much for coming in. And let's see. So we got good decent group hanging out with us tonight. So like I said, we're just going to do a little bit of a chat. I'm going to hide the comment because Katie needs to show off her brooch of the day. Yes. Hashtag the brooch gang. So who do we have on our brooch today, Katie?
So today we have a beautiful Weiss trunk down elephant. Thumbs up for trunk down. And he is just fantastic. He is gold toned. He's got a little red Jimmy eye and a faux sort of jade looking ear with some texture. I don't know if he's going to show up as well, but he is Weiss and he's just a fun piece. And I love that he's trunk down because all of the trunk up elephants always get the best sales. They get the best homes because people think they're lucky, but I'm here to tell you that trunk down elephants are just as lucky as their trunk up friends. So we got to save the trunk down elephants.
If not luckier, because they are always overlooked. So they're much more appreciative when they get found. So is the ear, is it enamel or is it a stone?
I'll show it here up close. It is sort of a green plasticky material, probably molded, I would think. I don't believe it's cut, but it's got a lot of great texture.
Oh, neat.
So it's really kind of cool, and it has a jade look, but you can hear it.
Okay. Oh yeah, you totally couldn't see that level of detail when you're wearing it. So that's very cool.
And it's got a fun little what would be like a fabric piece that goes over the elephant when you ride them.
And who did you say that was?
This is Weiss. So this is a
Oh,
very,
okay.
very high quality piece. I was lucky recently to find this eBay seller that had a Weiss, a Kramer, and the other one that I bought from her. I bought three, and this was $5. Now that is
Wow.
a bargain for Weiss.
$5 for a Weiss. That's
Yes.
amazing.
So, I mean, it is legit Weiss. The mark is exactly a Weiss mark. It's very high quality, really heavy. You can just tell the construction method in the back is really solid. You know, you can tell a fake Weiss because it just has sort of a poor quality and bad finish to the back. So she had the Weiss, the Kramer. I think the Kramer was like $10. It was a super good deal, and she combined shipping. Really nice lady. I just don't think she knew
Nice.
what she had. So this
Now,
was the find of the
I
year.
am not, obviously, I'm not as knowledgeable on this as you are. The Weiss that you've shown historically, and the only Weiss that I've ever come across were the ones with the stones in them. So, did they do a lot that were just the metal tone like that? Particularly if you think that jade piece is plastic, how much did they do of that? Was that a later piece? You said Weiss
I
wasn't
think
around for long.
no, they weren't. I think that this is a later piece. Weiss was founded in the 40s, I believe 1942 or 1943, and it only went to 1969. The son of Mr. Weiss actually ended up running the company into the ground. He just didn't know how to do business very well. And so I think this is probably a later 60s piece because I don't see a lot of the earlier pieces that are figural. They did a ton of rhinestone brooches with beautiful Austrian crystals. They were known for having the best crystals. So I don't think that this is a super early piece. Could be wrong, but given that mark, I think it's later. The earlier mark is the Weiss with the script DW in the circle.
Oh, okay.
And this has the copyright symbol, so I do think it's a little later. But all Weiss pieces are very wonderful, and they're good quality, and you don't find a ton. I'm not saying that they're rare, but you don't see a lot of the Weiss out there because it was such a short time that they were made. And the guy that did Weiss, he actually worked for Coro and some of the other jewelry manufacturers, so he really had studied and learned how to do jewelry, and he was excellent. So Weiss is fantastic. It's Albert Weiss that founded Weiss.
Chris, oops, just lost it. Chris has joined us, and she was saying the same thing. That I always think of white crystals when I think of Weiss. Now, I happen to still have them sitting here. This was the Weiss piece that I picked up,
That's
and I'll be selling this
beautiful.
later. So, I mean, I don't necessarily, I think a lot of the Weiss are white, and I think so there is a connection to that. But I knew they did the colors simply because I had that blue piece. Barbie is saying she had one that had sunflowers and green. That'd be pretty.
That's beautiful. I have a Weiss brooch I will show that I got at the antique mall when I was shopping. So if you saw Pam's sale, I had a whole bunch of amazing jewelry, and I did find a Weiss piece. And I was wearing it. You guys saw this on Instagram, and it is like a lilac color, right? It's absolutely gorgeous. And then when I actually took it off my shirt and walked into the closet, it is a different color. It's blue. So this has these amazing stones that change color in UV light, in different light. And I want to say it's neodendrite, but I'm not 100% sure. Gorgeous. And I didn't know that when I bought it. And now when I got it home, it's so cool because in one light it's purple, like a lilac, and the other it's like a light blue. Oh, Patrick, you're muted.
Few new people are joining us. We got Cheryl that joined us coming in. Jan has joined us. We said hi to Chris already. Let's see. A couple of people popped up. Oh, Heather from Antique Agenda has joined us. Donna DeBama. And I thought there was one more before Donna DeBama. Debbie came in. Oh, and Hamster was here. So thanks everyone for joining in. So I will do my brooch of the day. So I am bringing back the hat pin as opposed to bringing back the brooch. But no worries. We're going to take the brooches. So this is a piece that I picked up. Be honest, it was kind of an impulse purchase because I was buying something else off of eBay, and I cannot remember what I was buying, but I was buying something off of eBay, and I wanted to. The shipping was kind of expensive. Oh, it was that big heavy tobacco cutter that I showed last week. And it was one of the cases where it's like I was paying so much to ship it. I wanted to throw some small stuff in there to go along with it, just to kind of, because I'm being cheap. So that was one of the pieces, and I absolutely loved it. It's marked 925, so it's sterling silver, and it is also marked Peru. So I've never had Peruvian silver before, and I just liked the way it looks on a hat band.
Fabulous.
Just the length of it, and I'll probably never have a Weiss brooch pinned to the front of my hat. That's just not my style. But something like that I thought was pretty cool. And I did actually, we're doing like kind of show and tell this week as well. So I did pick up some other brooches. Katie hasn't even seen these.
Ooh.
So we've got this. I think, would that be considered a poppy?
I would consider that a poppy, yes.
So it's an enameled poppy. It does not appear to be signed, or at least I haven't found a signature. But learning a little bits and pieces from Katie that has the angled riveted bracket, so that's a little bit older. So era-wise, what would you put this in with that bracket?
I would say late 50s into the 60s.
Excellent.
That bracket you see in that time frame.
Perfect. So I picked up that one. I also picked this one up, and I had picked up another enamel piece that I was interested in this a couple weeks ago. And Katie's like, I think that's probably a little bit more modern. And then I found this one, and all I could think of was, Katie's going to think it's too modern. It's going to be modern. I don't want modern. And I flipped it over. And so it has the angled bracket again. I can't tell if it's riveted or not.
Yep, it's riveted.
And then there's just a ridiculous amount of patina on the back. Like somebody actually put this in an aquarium and it like got eaten away by salt water. I can't find a signature on it, but I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, I do too. That is stunning.
And the front is in amazing condition compared to how bad the back is. So the enameling was done really well. There's no chips. There's no cracks to it. Just a little family of angelfish. And I do like the rhinestones, but in some cases I find they're almost too showy, that I thought this was just a really, I'll be selling him, but I thought that was a really attractive piece.
Fantastic. 1950s, I'd say, for that.
Awesome. Now, Katie did help me with this one. This is marked JJ, and she said this was probably 80s.
Yep. Jonette Jewelry made really great things.
So this one had the straight bracket on the back. But just, and I could totally see this pin to like, Alexis Carrington, right before she fell into the pool. Total dynasty, over the top, big business type, but it's very showy. So what would that be? A panther?
I would say panther. Leopards usually have spots.
Yeah, because they don't seem to have given any sort of texture to the coat, so it's very sleek.
Yeah, I would say panther, given that he's also on that black.
Yeah, panther, puma, that kind of thing. And then the last one, I need to find. I seem to have misplaced my loop. We're going to see if you guys can see this any better than I can. Probably not, but see if you recognize the signature. It looked to me somewhat like Davi, D-A-V-I, and unfortunately,
that is little.
I don't know if anyone's starting to recognize that. I will try and get a better picture of it, but I fell in love with the brooch.
Oh, that's gorgeous, Patrick.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is like an 80s reinterpretation of the 20s. Based on the back, I don't think it's that old. Like, I don't think it's from the 20s, but I just love the deco of this.
And I would probably say 1980s on that, but man, that on a hat on the side would look really cool. And I love the I think it's blue enameling that's going through there next to the stones, and then you've got that kind of mother of pearl look to it. That is really gorgeous, and I don't recognize that mark, but it doesn't mean
so like just looking at it through through my phone magnifier, it looks like the first letter is a D, and it looks like the last letter, or at least toward the end, there's a dot to the I. So like Davi, or it might be David, and there is a copyright symbol at the very end. Actually, I just got a little bit better picture.
It's not Capri, is it?
Dury?
Yeah, it does look like Dury.
Or is that a D or is it a W? I think it's a D.
I think it's a D. I'm pretty sure that's a D.
So literally, I
Yeah.
just snapped this picture in front of you guys. Like I've not been able to get this good of a picture. So I think it's the lighting that
Oh,
I
I
have
found it.
what made it a little bit easier to grab because of the spotlights. So I
It
don't know if
is.
anyone wants to do any Googling for me. That's the company. It looked like DURI. I was right. There was an I on the end.
I just found it. Vintage Dury enamel rhinestone brooch. And they made different ones. And here, let me show this to you guys since you can't see my screen. But there it is.
There you go. Okay, so they've got a much darker color in the mother of pearl. There's almost like a dark onyx. So
I
what
like
era
blue.
was Dury?
Well, let me see. Let me see if Google's got anything on that.
This is why it's fun to do these chats
It is.
because
It's
we
fun
literally
to
all kind of discussed something on the end. So yeah, Nate
Okay.
just found it as well.
Okay, located in New Jersey, Dury is currently well-known provider of jewelry service in Plainfield. Unfortunately, there is no clear information about the founder and the date. Previously, the company was known for its high-quality costume jewelry and enamel in the 1960s through 1980s. So,
Okay,
there it is.
excellent.
And they were known also for doing beautiful Art Deco and Art Nouveau revival pieces through the 1960s through 1980s. So yeah,
Exciting.
somewhere in that time frame there, Patrick.
And I would say I think the 80s were more known for knocking off the 20s.
Yep.
As I don't think that was a big thing in the 60s or the 70s, really.
No, I would say 80s, but that's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, I loved that one. And even though in the store, I could not figure it out at all. You know, I literally was trying to get a picture. I was trying to zoom in. It was all about the lighting. And I just like, you know what? I don't care. This is a very cool piece. I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to resell it. But it was just like, you know what? I'm willing to take a risk on this based on what I was buying it for. Even if I just returned my money, I would have been happy. And maybe it's not worth more than what I paid, but it was very pretty. And I don't do a lot with brooches, but Katie, gives me the courage to like try and do more. And I'm going to be doing my first drop sale on Instagram of brooches probably this weekend. So if you're not following my Instagram channel, make sure you're following that. And I will announce in advance when I'm going to do it. I'll tag, if people want to tag, I'll tag people. And I'll probably drop between 5 and 10 brooches and just see how it goes. I've not had a lot of success selling on Instagram, but since I'm not doing sales now, I'll be honest, I miss the income. So, if you want to buy a mystery box, tell me, I'll sell you a mystery box, but I'm just not doing regular sales at this point. I might go back to doing more sales after I get back to my quote unquote normal time slot. But for now, we're here to have fun. The other one that I picked up in the same place, this one I'm keeping for myself. It's an Olympic pin. So USA, the Olympic rings. So that'll just be a little hat pin that I picked up for myself. And of course, the next place I went after I bought it had it for half the price that I paid. So I'm like, okay, whatever, live and learn. But it was an impulse purchase. I didn't pay much for it. I was totally happy. So Nate said he found something similar to that for 22. If I could sell it for 22, I'd be very happy. I did not pay 22, so I would be very happy with that. And it's also worth noting, unless we are saying it's something we're keeping for ourselves, anything I show, and maybe to a less extent things that Katie show, but anything I show, if I say I'm selling it, I'm selling it. So if you want it, just tell me. Drop me a note, send me an email, and if we can work out a price, I have no problem selling it to you, separate from anything else I've got planned. But I picked it up at the same place I picked up this piece.
Oh man, that is gorgeous, Patrick.
I didn't think to grab. I don't remember where my blue light, my black light is. But what I did while I was at the store is I actually showed this, and I did this this was the very first time I did it. I did a survey on my Instagram. I did a poll on my Instagram story asking people if I should buy this for resale. And 96% came back and said yes. 94% said yes. 6% said no. And the only reason I would say it would be no is because, and that's why I was asking, because the gold is worn on this. So it's one of those cases where it's like, it's not in as perfect condition as I would like, but I'd never seen the shape. And so Nate's asking if it's a desk tray. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know what this would have been. There's no indentations or anything, so there's nothing to fit into it. So I'm assuming it's just a dresser tray so that you would put your perfume bottle, maybe a little pin dish or your hair receiver or something like that. It's a decent size, so you could definitely put multiple pieces on it. But I think it probably, because of the gold, I don't know, I would think this would probably end up in a boudoir more than a dining room. What do you think, Katie?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that is definitely more something for a vanity item than it would have been for a kitchen. I have seen those uranium sets. Typically, they have handles and they have little indents where you would put a cruet set or a salt and pepper shaker. There are several patterns and companies that made deco designs like that. So I'm not 100% sure who made that off the top of my head, but I've got some books that will be fun looking in for those. And I really don't think that it's a kitchen item, but I could be wrong. It's just gorgeous. And even though the gold's worn off of it, the fact that it's that unique shape and it's uranium, I totally think makes it a winner.
That's what kind of let me go over the edge on it, was like, it's just a shape that I'd never seen before. And I just thought it was versatile enough that people could put whatever they want on it. So I'm not sure what I'll do with this one. I might hold it till the next sale because I don't know who made it. There's no markings on it. So to sell it online, there's really no keywords that, other than uranium, that people would necessarily find it. So I'll probably just sell that in an upcoming live sale, if and when I return to them. I might be doing more partnership live sales, or Katie and I do sales together on occasion. So you'll probably see it at some point, but that was picked up at the same place as the brooches. And it was with the brooches. So some of the brooches were on it. And so initially I was hoping it was, I think you've had one of these. Was it tea berry? It was a gum display.
Oh, yes. Tea-berry gum display.
But those are marked. And so initially I was thinking it was actually a store display. Like that was what I was going after, a total huckster item. But there's nothing that indicates it necessarily would have been specifically for a store display. There's no branding on it. There's no pedestal. It's just a flat surface. So
yeah, the tea-berry gum displays have the pedestal, and they do make ones in clear and uranium. I have a clear one, but they're usually embossed right under the display.
I'll say right on there.
Yeah, it'll say tea-berry gum. So, and I don't believe they made reproductions of those, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So that was a fun find. I'm trying to think. I did get one other thing from there, and I don't know what to do with this. It's a little shell bag.
Oh, that's cool.
So the problem with it is, and I don't know if anyone has experience with this, the problem with it is it's hinged, and the clasp is this little wire piece that slips through the loop on the other side. So it opens, relatively okay. It just has to slide through, and it is a hinged box. So you've got the shell on the inside and the hinge is on the back. But when you go to close it, you have to be really careful to get the wire, slid back in. And then when you go to hold it, it actually doesn't close up. Like there's this gap. Mm-hmm. And I tried to see if I could bend this or whatever, but because it has to eventually slide through the hoop, I'm afraid to do a lot of bending, because then you got to bend it back to slide it through. So I don't know if anybody's ever had one of these. Like, is that the way they're supposed to be? Are they supposed to sit open like that?
I am not an expert on purses. I actually don't carry a purse, but my grandmother and my mom did, and they ended up going to a lot of evening events because, my mom was in TV, and they had, things back in the 90s and early 2000s where they had events that were pretty fancy, and you'd get dressed up, and mom would MC stuff sometimes, and she would always carry little purses like that. They were my grandmother's, and they always gapped open like that. Now, I don't know if it's just how they are, or if there's wear to it. I'm not 100% sure. But that kind of reminds me of like a souvenir piece that you would have gotten at a really nice resort or something in Florida.
Yeah, for your time at the seashore, type thing. Yeah, so like, I don't know if it would have been a sewing box, because to frame of reference, here it is against my phone. I mean, this is small. This is not going to hold much. Like, this wouldn't even hold a credit card. So like, I could see this maybe being used to hold sewing stuff, or like in modern days, your contact case.
Or lipstick, pretty much it.
Lipstick. I mean, I think there is some age to it just because of the way it's made. So it's like there's twisted there, and I think there's some patina to the brass that's holding it, that's holding the frame. And Angela's saying that she just saw something like it, but without the chain. I'm assuming the chain is original because it looks like it's somehow embedded into the brass that's holding the shell. But, again, I picked this up at a relatively inexpensive price that I'm hoping I can resell that. And it's just something fun.
Older purses, people didn't carry around a lot with them in general. And I know my grandmother had a bunch of purses that I would open up and play with as a kid. And we'd find, like a $20 bill stuck inside because they were so small that, you're not going to carry much. But also back in the 50s and 60s, when she would go out places, you just tuck some cash in your purse or whatever to pay the taxi or to, buy dinner or whatever. And that was it. So it's possible that was all that was made for, like a super, evening type purse.
And Bren is in Hawaii, and I could totally see that. And I could see it going back to maybe even into the 60s, 70s, but I don't think much older than that. No. But I could totally agree that I think it's probably older than maybe pre-2000 just because of the patina on the brass. I mean, that seems to be legitimately older. So let's see. On the attic saying I was through a fantastic book, Art Deco, Abrams Publishing. Art Deco is one of those cases, and I'm very big into over the top stuff, but Deco to me ends up being almost too over the top. Like it's too on the nose for being just flashy. So it's not my preferred era. What was going on at the same time in Europe, kind of overlapping it, was also the Jugendstil and the secessionist works. That sometimes have some of the same angularity, but just doesn't seem quite as showy.
Yeah.
But it's like, but I love that brooch. Like to me, even though I knew that this would be considered deco, and if I bring it online, I will definitely say it's deco. It's horizontality. No, that's not even a word. But the fact that it's more of a horizontal, I think is almost Edwardian. And this to me is almost a transition piece, that it's kind of like, we're going to give you the curves and we're going to give you the lines, but we're going to kind of do it in a way that still looks like an old fashioned 10s teens bar brooch, which I really like those.
I love those bar pens. I don't find them often, but they are gorgeous. They're really stunning. And I'm a big fan of all things Art Deco. I like the showiness of it. More so, I like the lines. I was playing with my Brownie camera today. And I mean, the lines on that.
Yeah, that's pretty sexy.
That's just cool. And it looks like the Empire State Building. When you go inside and all of this work is put into the inlay and the tiles and stuff, I just am totally obsessed.
And we're finding friends, finding each other. Freedie's also in Hawaii. Bren is also in Hawaii. So hello. Freedie meet Bren. Bren meet Freedie finds. And I apologize, Freedie finds. I don't know. Because you only have one D, I don't know actually how to pronounce that. So I say Freedie. Or is it Freddie? I'm pretty sure you're a woman, or female, or what. I think I saw a picture one time that you were a female. So I don't think you're Fred, but I could be totally wrong. So
and maybe that's your dog's name, because
there you go. We got a lot of people that own stuff through their dogs. So yes, one of the things I also picked up. Now this will not be for sale for a while, but it eventually will go for sale. I love ephemera. If you know my channel, I love ephemera. Not everyone does, but I am currently in rehearsals to perform in a show. But at the same time, I am responsible for set dressing and props for another show. And the show that I'm doing set dressing and props for is Arsenic and Old Lace, which takes place in like roughly late 30s. So I found some catalogs with wallpaper designs to try and create the interior of the home. So what I have are two different booklets. So this one is Sears and Roebuck. Now, unfortunately, I can't find a date on this, and I don't believe I have the entire catalog, because there's references in the front that say, like, look for pricing on page 106. I only go to page 24. So I'm missing a big chunk of the catalog, but there's some cool stuff in here. So you've got the wallpaper. I'm also wondering if it's been cut in half because it's kind of like a rough edge, but all the pictures, they're complete. So I don't know if there was another set of pictures ahead of it, but regardless, you've
Maybe
got
the cutter got messed up on that
yeah.
day.
So you got attractive bedrooms.
Oh, look at the font on that.
Yeah. So it's like not necessarily a bedroom I'd want to recreate or will be able to recreate on stage, but so that was that one. Then the next one, wait, did this one have more than one? So I just said attractive bedrooms. Thought there was another one that had a header. Well, I don't see it now, but in some cases the images are in color.
Oh man, look at that.
So you've got the wallpaper plus the border. Just the front, you've got like look at all of the detail of how they did the border work to create the fake like tall chair rail and everything from the craftsman, the turn of the century American four square homes. They've reproduced it with wallpaper. Check this one out. This is my favorite. So based on that, I am thinking this is teens to 20s. So because that looks very Maxfield Parrish, it's almost impressionistic, but getting into, and then you've got some of the furniture, you've got kind of Empire Revival, Biedermeier sideboard, but you've got that tall wainscoting again with the wallpaper inset, and then that frieze going all the way around at the top. I mean, that is unbelievably decadent, but in a tasteful way. But then you look at something like this. If you just showed me that, I would assume this catalog was from the 80s. Like that, just those colors.
That's very 80s.
Yeah. So it's just like, everything that goes around comes around. There was the nursery panel there in the middle.
Oh, that is border. Very sweet.
So isn't that cool? So like as I'm holding this, the book is falling apart. So it's probably not going to be worth much, but oilcloth.
Oh, wow.
The modern wall covering. So that is the Sears catalog. And then out of it was packaged with the Montgomery Ward catalog from 1926. So we have a 1926 wallpaper, and this one is the actual wallpaper. This is the wallpaper sample book. So you've got, unfortunately, it's been cut up. So people were using some of the pictures for craft projects or something. Like they cut out an entire portion of the frieze. So let me find a roll that's in good condition. It might have been
some kid having a good time with their parents' catalog.
Yeah, this is like they're decorating their dollhouse or whatever. But so you've got, this is one full page of wallpaper. So again, kind of showing the border with the background. And then on the back of it, it's the Mardi Gras pattern. So it says right on there, this is printed on the back of an actual sample of Mardi Gras, 10.5 cents for a single roll. So you could get that for 10.5 cents.
And look at the gold on that.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is like, I wouldn't have guessed this was from the 20s, but it clearly is because it is literally bound into this catalog. But there's, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to tell. But like this one's another full page. I don't know if I can hit the light in the right way. This one's textured.
You can definitely see that.
It's like, it feels like leather. Like it feels like tooled leather. So that one is more than double the cost of the other. So this one is a whopping 24 cents for a single roll. But that's the Felicity pattern. And so you can it's a much thicker paper. It's almost like the Anaglypta wallpaper. And then again, I don't know if you'll be able to tell if I can get it to hit the light. In above this rounded portion is a gold accent. So again, I mean, like that in candlelight and or newfound electric light, you get a glimmer right off of the edge of that. And then it's advertising other things, like this is the awards catalog, so it's varnish. So, and just different things you could get. And again, it's unfortunate that so many of the pages are cut, but I still believe that there's going to be some value to this. There's all these images in the back of designs for the home. It's just kind of a cool piece. I didn't pay a lot for it, but I bought it specifically for ideas to decorate the stage. So eventually I'll probably sell it, but it'd be great for junk journaling because some of the pages are already cut up.
Just don't tell me if you're gonna junk. I just think that's so fabulous.
Two things I wanted to show. Val, it is. It's so cool. And Frida is also saying I love old wallpaper books. It's just fun, Have you ever heard of the play Ladies in Retirement? I can't say that I'm familiar with that one.
Nope.
I love the movie. So yeah, Arsenic and Lace, most people know it from the movie. Oh, okay. And thank you. I was looking to see if you had answered the question. So it's Freddie. So thank you. It's for your last name. Very good. So I will try and remember that. I do want to show something I got in the mail today because I always like to recognize when people do really good jobs in packing. This is something I will admit I don't get a lot from him, but if you're familiar with Sean from Skunky Junk, he runs a really well-run sale, and let me keep this together. So I get this in the mail, and it's just this. It's a regular, it's like my address. It's my P.O. box. That's public. It's just this thick envelope, but it was light enough that it goes by regular stamp, and it's thin enough that it's still covered under first class mail rules, which next Wednesday, Katie and I will be doing our next duo dive. It will be on my channel, and we are going to be doing a complete analysis of the U.S. Postal System's shipping rules, all the way from first class mail, all the way up to priority mail, including box and bag, and express and ground, like all the differences and what the rules are. And one of the rules is if something's lightweight, it's not enough just to be lightweight. It also has to be thin to be able to use a stamp. So first of all, that's what Sean did. So he saved a lot of money on the cost of shipping. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I couldn't even remember what I bought from him. So when I open it up, I get the little card. He has a handwritten note. And then he's got this little stack of cardboard. And when you open it up, it's 3 pieces of cardboard. And the third piece has a hole cut out of it to hold the item that I bought.
That is incredible.
So I bought a new hat pin, an original Roosevelt green duck manufactured political pin. And he had the mindset to be able to cut out a piece of cardboard so that it sat flat and then still protect it and then just tuck it into a card and be able to ship it first class mail. Brilliant.
Wonderful.
Absolutely brilliant. So, kudos to Sean. And it's a cool piece. He had a, what was it? It was a President's Day sale, I think was the theme.
Yeah, I think it was President's Day sale with Catherine and Nancy.
Catherine Young and Nancy from This Overstuffed House. And so he had a collection of political pins. And I picked this one, and he was kind enough. I wanted to know what was on the back because there are reproductions of this style of pin or later ones. And I just wanted to make sure it was an early one, and it was. And I thought it was absolutely ingenious how he mailed that. And I will absolutely remember that because there's times that I'm sending something and I feel bad because I end up like putting bubble wrap or something around it. And then I'm past the thickness. So even a 2-ounce shipment suddenly it has to be like $3 because suddenly it has to go by package mail instead of by first class mail. So that's a cool way to do it.
Very cool tip. And I learn from every package I get.
Absolutely.
Which is wonderful.
Absolutely. And I also got a package from Miss Katie herself. So if you haven't ever gotten anything from Katie, you get a little card with Katie and Louie. Louie's being very quiet tonight, so I hope she's doing well.
She is. She's doing well.
And she sent me some friend mail. So I'm going to actually open it. I haven't even opened it yet. So I just picked it up from the post office today before it started snowing. I ran to the post office just to drop something off and make sure I got whatever I needed for tonight. And so she sent me a few items, which I'm going to open up while we're on air.
This is very exciting.
So we've got Tiger saying the pure masochism. I don't know what we're talking about.
I
What did
don't
I
know.
say?
I don't think so. It's probably maybe he meant mechanism.
Awesome. Check this out. This is gonna be awesome on a hat.
Yep.
I could be like the press, like have this cool fountain pen.
So there you go.
That is awesome. And I love it. I just love enameling. That's just something I've always loved because you can get so much detail with the colors and brightness of the the post office.
Oh, the post office, yeah.
Trust me, I'm worried about doing this duo dive. We have somebody coming in. She's done some videos as well. We've got Mel coming in from Vintage Loving Veteran.
Oh,
and she's
yeah.
Yeah, she's done some videos, particularly on box and bag. That's how I actually first found her. She did a video on box and bag like a year and a half ago, when there were first some questions about it. And one of the things she jokes about is because she's from the military, she's very big in following the rules. So she'll sit there and read all the rules from the Postal Service and make sure what the rules say. And so that's what we're going to cover. Is just going to be like, look, we're not going to do a lot of opinions. We're just going to talk about what the rules say, because even how I was using media mail, I've recently learned I'm not using it properly. So it's one of those cases like, oops, okay, I just learned something I didn't know. So that's what it's gonna be about. Duo dives are about education, infotainment. And so we're going to give you the information and let people do whatever they want. So that was awesome. Katie always packages so well too.
I love that green paper, guys. I think it's fantastic. I get it on Amazon, but I'm glad you like that brooch, Patrick. I knew the moment I saw it, you had to have it.
That's a great idea, Cheryl. Well, I'm at the point now where I have a new obsession, because I have now a driving hat. Didn't start out to become a driving hat, but has become a driving hat because I don't find it appropriate for indoor. This is a fairly mild shirt because I was out in public tonight. But for some of the hats that I was wearing, I needed more of the bright colors, lighter hats, whatever. So I have this cap. It's a Stetson. I don't know. Is it a newsboy? I don't even know.
I would call it newsboy.
Newsboy. And I started putting my old chauffeur badges on it. And so I'm changing that out every day. And so I'm like, well, I only have 3. I need more. So I bought 6 today. So I have a new obsession with my chauffeur badges. So I'll show that. I'll show you some of the ones that I bought. This one's we got another brooch. Would this be considered a jelly belly?
Yeah, I would. Well, he's not lucite. Typically, jelly bellies are lucite, but that's kind of stone in the middle. And I just thought he was really unique. And
I love the face dark tones. He'll look great on like one of my natural colored or brown hats.
I thought that hat you had on yesterday might match him.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. All right, I got one more thing in here. And we got Junking Data Girl has joined us. I've completely forgotten her real name.
That's Cha-Cha.
Cha-Cha. Sorry, how could I forget that?
It's easy. We've got so many people in the chat, and it's great having everybody here, but names can be confusing.
And we got Freddie and Bren still stalking each other, trying to figure out where they
plan a meetup. There
you go, a little Hawaiian meetup. Katie had shown me one of these. Hopefully the glare.
Oh yeah,
I have a globe collection, but this is going to go on my tobacco tags. So it's called Big Lever, and it's the world sitting on you can barely tell it because of the glare, but it's sitting on a lever. So to be able to lift the world. So that is so cool. So I think Katie, you bought one of these for yourself too, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just looking in all of my mini tobacco tags over here.
Big Lever tobacco.
Pull it out so there it is. You're getting all the sounds of the clinking metal. There it is.
Awesome. Yeah, you're sitting at the glare. So yeah.
We now have a matching set of tobacco tags.
And if you missed if we missed the chat last week, this is Katie and my newest obsession. So in the last week, I've picked up all of these tobacco tins plus the tin. So I've got a Climax thin plug, 3 by 12 inch, 7-ounce plugs. There were 5 in this box, and they were each 5-cent cuts. So you get 5 cent cuts. So I've got my first, Katie's introducing me to the Rusty and Crusty. So I've got this cool tin. The climax on the top, the advertising on the front, on the back, which I haven't figured out yet. Cream of the burly crop. I don't know what that means.
I just don't know about that, but it's really fun.
But what we discovered is both the tobacco tags themselves plus this tobacco tin are actual tin, not aluminum. So magnets work on them. So I bought these tiny little earth magnets, and they work perfectly to go into the tin and to showcase all these tags that I have. I didn't have enough magnets, so I have now suddenly all of these others that I haven't gotten hung yet. And I discovered another cool way to display them. So I talked about this last week, but I didn't have an example of it. So what this is, it's a 12 by 12 mold. And so what they would have done in this case is, and there's differing arguments on it, but one of them kind of makes sense, is you would have a frame that you would put the tobacco into, and you press it down, and either you would push this into the top so that you would have the Brown's Mule logo molded into the top, or you'd set this in the bottom of the frame and then put the tobacco on it and then tamp it down, and so that you would have the image on it as well. So either way, in addition to or instead of the tobacco tag, you'd have this little mark. So you would get a little square cut of tobacco from the plug. And so if you think of some of the tobacco tins, they're square and they're very flat. And it's because they would hold things like this. And then you would just crumble it up yourself or put it in your pipe or whatever you want to do. So it's holding
awesome
a bunch of tins or a bunch of tags as well. And I still have the Picard all over gold tray that I showed in some of my videos with all the others. So these aren't any duplicates. So I've already pulled all the duplicates out, and those are going to be traded with Katie. And then I've also created the stack of triplicates. So whether Nate likes it or not, he is the third member of the triptych, and he is going to have a collection of tobacco tags. Yep. So all the ones that in some cases, there will be some tobacco tags that all three of us will actually own.
Which is really fantastic. I now have an entire ashtray filled up with tobacco tags.
Oh, wow.
So I have been adding these to my collection. I just want a big lot of them, and I was really excited to get the Golden Rule, which I thought was just awesome. This one.
So Chacha's asking for clarification. So it's not tobacco tabs, tag with a G. With a G. T-A-G-S. So tobacco tags.
And these had little things in the back, little metal tines is the best way I can describe it, that would have stuck down into the tobacco. So that way they could actually brand the tobacco and it wouldn't get mixed with cheap tobacco from like a general store or a tobacconist. They could actually say, you're getting Golden Rule tobacco. You're getting what you're paying for. This set,
neither had we, Cha-Cha. No. Like this collection literally dates to about a month ago at best. I've stumbled across them researching something up. Oh, that's cool. Researching something else. And I sent it to Katie thinking she could add it to her tobacco collection. And while I was doing it, I suddenly realized this is like totally up my alley. This is, a huckster marking his territory. And so Katie's like, no, I shouldn't do she's like, she didn't want to do the triptych. I should do the triptych because it's a huckster item. So at some point you will probably see at least a duo dive, if not Tales from the Triptych, about tobacco tags, but they're hard to research. So, that's a cool one. So I ordered a book. I have not received it yet. It's supposed to be here this week. So hopefully I'll get it. Maybe it'll be here tomorrow or Saturday. It's the only book that's been written about tobacco tags. There are literally thousands and thousands of designs. And what's cool is, do I have it? Yeah. So here is a Brown's Mule tag. So same with the prongs on it. So this would have been locked into the tobacco. And that's what this is. So in Katie's case, she's found a handful, but it's hard. She's got a tobacco tin collection, which I do not have. But you said you've been having a hard time finding tags that match your tins, right?
Yeah, and that's interesting because I've been trying to do some research on some of the tags, and it's hard because they don't necessarily always correlate to the tens. Now, some of these were fairly early. I think they stopped doing these around 1930, if I've got my
Yeah.
dates right. So
We do have things like this. Like this was a variation of her pen's tin,
yeah.
but it must have been a different sub brand or something. My fountain pen one must be on my tray.
Like I've never seen a Rescue Tobacco 10.
Oh, that's an awesome one.
And this one's fantastic. So I've got my 10 book and I've been going through it and trying to match these up. One of the ones I was really excited to get in this lot is Dice. I had a Dice one that was die cut, but this one's got the script on it, which is just absolutely amazing. But I've never heard of Dice Tobacco. And when you do some of the research on these, they're just kind of non-existent. It's really hard to research tobacco tins in general. And it's even harder with these tags because tobacco tins, if they've got a tax stamp on them, at least you can kind of date them. Because in 1930, they started doing Series 100 or Series A, and that's the US tax stamp. So you can kind of help date them. But these little tags are kind of hard, but they're fun. You know, it's the mystery and the thrill of finding and researching them.
Yeah, so like that one, the brand is Wilson McCall. I'd never heard of, but I just bought this one. It hasn't come in yet. I mean, I'm sorry, he's a huckster. Like, I don't know who that's supposed to be, but as far as I'm concerned, he is my spirit animal, and I needed to own him. So I did go ahead and purchase him. So as you get into, I specifically need this one, they're getting a little bit more expensive.
Yes.
But in general, if you're, I just bought a lot. Well, this one is technically came in a lot, but the other three in the lot I already own. So, if Katie doesn't have them, they'll go to her and we'll trade. But in general, I paid a lot for this one because technically I already had the other three. So I actually paid a bunch of money for one, but it's one that was harder to find. I found another one, but it was in super bad condition. So it's just like, at this point, I can't get into pristine condition. That just isn't going to exist with these.
No.
But yeah, it's like, so I've got to admit the rusty and crusty at some point. But
this one I paid up for. So this is the case that I actually was able to attribute this one to a tobacco tin. And I've got little pieces of metal sticking to me. But this is knapsack tobacco. And they do have a couple of tins in existence. They're pretty scarce. When you do find them, they go for several hundred, if not $1,000. The graphics on the knapsack tin are really amazing. I believe they're from 1920 or so, maybe even earlier. And so this one, when I saw it, I knew that I had to have it because I'll never be able to own the 10 unless I get lucky and find it somewhere really inexpensively. But now I'm able to own a pretty cool little tobacco tag. I paid up for this at $10. So some of them I have been paying up for. Most, like this one, I paid $8 for. But this lot that I won 46 tobacco tags for $29, and that is a very good bargain. So
excellent deal.
The top.
So Freddie is asking 2 questions, and I apologize, Freddie, because I didn't see this one come across. You said, "What does the shield say?" And I'm not sure which one of us was holding a shield.
So this one I was trying to figure out. I do believe it's possibly a tobacco tag, given that it's got the little tines. But it's interesting because it says check and then 728 New York to San Francisco. So this almost seems to me like maybe at one point this was something else. It seems like it has a number on it, but then it has the D and M co. So that makes me feel like that is tobacco, but it's different than all the other ones and it's got more things on it. So I'm not 100% sure, but this came in that big lot. And I
wonder if that would have been hammered into a crate. Like if they were shipping a crate on a train or something like that, that was literally the D&M Co. way of sealing up the crate or something, or paying tax on it.
That could be. So there
cross country, like that's interesting that it'd be shipping, because then that relates to Freddie's second question, is what part of the country will these be more abundant? Now, I can't swear. I've yet to find one in the wild, but admittedly, I'm literally only, that's beautiful. I love the fonts on those because those are the older ones, like probably 1880s.
Yeah.
I've yet to find these in the wild here in Chicago. Now, I will say that there's several of them that I've seen listed now I lost it. I had one on here that listed, oh, here it is. I've got this red, white, and blue one that says Winston-Salem, North Carolina on it. There was one lot that I was bidding on and I ended up losing out on it, but it was all of the tags were from North Carolina. So I think tobacco country is probably where these would be probably more relevant, more prevalent, because the tobacco wasn't traveling as far. But there was an ad I did in the video I posted a couple of weeks ago of the horseshoe, which is on the tray. But the ad said there was over 100 million of these already in production at that point. And this was an ad from like the 20s. So there's literally millions of these that were made, but they just weren't designed. That's one of my favorites. If these just weren't designed to be around for very long. So you probably figure the tobacco areas that made them, may have been more prevalent because they might have been taken home by workers, or they were used for other purposes because they were so plentiful if they're making millions of them. But theoretically, even if you shipped it to San Francisco, it should have been shipped with the tags in it. So they should be all over the place. It's the question of whether people kept it. So in a really generic way, if you have an area that a lot of people were smoking up until 1930, there's probably more likely that those are going to be around. And that's probably pretty much everywhere, but bigger cities probably more than little cities.
Well, and Patrick and I both are trying to figure out which ones really are more rare or scarce. None of us in this community really like using that word too much because it gets overused. But I do think, particularly from what I'm seeing in lots and what I've been scouring, and I mean, Patrick and I both have been scouring eBay.
We're always making sure we're not bidding each other up. Yeah. Are you going after this one? Am I going for this one after?
Yeah. I can tell you I have never seen this one by itself in any of the lots.
That's okay, Chacha. That's why we're here. As we others understand it, and I'll see if I don't know if I'll be able to find the image really. No, I think I have the article saved. This is what a plug of tobacco would look like. So they would take the tobacco, they would press it down, and they would make it. And this tin that I showed, that 12-inch long tin that was 3 inches wide, that's how long a plug would be. Now that tin was specifically for a thin plug. So I'm not sure what a standard plug thickness is, but you can see in this particular example, there's one tag in the middle. So it was literally hammered into the tobacco itself. And then the other way you could do it, which actually the box shows it better than anything.
Yeah, the box is fabulous.
This box was then set up assume that the box is the size of a plug. You can see that little circle is, do you have your Climax plug near you? I don't have mine.
I got it right here. Let me get it.
So you can see side by side. That's literally what the tag looked like. So they would take this big plug, this 12-inch long plug of tobacco, and then this one had 5. So it was a weird size, but they would, basically cut it into, or have these little markers. And so then when it went to the store, you could use a plug cutter, and you would cut it in between each of these tags. So then when you walked away with the cut plug, and if you collect tobacco tins, you would see that they would say cut plug. That's what you got a square cut off of this maximum. So that's the one that Katie just bought. I have a similar one. Hers is fancier than mine. But you would slide that long piece into that piece down there at the bottom. That's a little bit different color. That handle lifts up, and it's just kind of like a paper cutter, like a machete paper cutter. You lift it up, slide the plug in, and then when you chop it down, it would cut the plug. So you would have a smaller size. And then once you got the cut plug, you could shred it. You could do whatever you wanted to do with it. Put it in your pipe, put it into a tobacco pouch, or keep the square in a tin, and then just shred up what you need as you need it. So I'm learning a ton because I've never smoked. And trust me, even though I did smoke, I certainly wouldn't be freaking rolling my own. So I have no idea. Like, there's all different types of tobacco. There's all different things that somehow fit into all of this. but the old fashioned, that was the other thing that was on here. There's called a twist. There's rope tobacco. So that second picture is rope tobacco. And so we have a pin or a tag.
You have it, Granger Twist.
I do, but it must be on my tray because I don't see it here. But it's literally a brand that was called Granger Twist. So when they got sold, it would have the Granger name. It'd be tagged right on there. And actually, the Granger Twist one, I think I showed it last week, which is why it's on the other tray. It actually had a little thing at the bottom that says, "We are no longer using paper labels. We're using this because our labels were being imitated." So they were it was all about branding. And so they started doing the metal ones. So I do have one of those.
And we're finding that there's different versions of each kind. So like this, this is the dice one that I just got in the lot. But then there's also die cut versions of each kind. And maybe not for every single one, but it's really neat to collect the different styles and versions.
So I don't know if you can find the picture of the one you showed me earlier, but like I've got two Newsboy versions. So I've got this one that the graphics are a little bit different. And then this one that it's a little bit brighter, but if you have them side by side, the font is also different. So it's not just that one looks better than the other. They're totally different. And then Katie found that one, which is significantly older. So that one is also marked Winston. So it's another North Carolina one. But they're all the Newsboy brands. So since these ran from 1870s was when they were invented. They're invented by the Lorillard Tobacco Company, which owns tons of brands. Yeah, and they started it in the 1870s. Yeah, they started with Climax was one of them. And then the book that I bought said it goes up to 1930. I thought it's the 30s, but now I've looked at it again. It says 1930. So somewhere around 1930, they ended. And whether they were replaced by paper or they were just that's the way things were distributed differently after the Depression, I'm not sure. But you're right. They're hard to find because in some cases, some of these brands may have only existed for like a year. And look at that one, starting bid $43.
Yep. And I've never seen this one again. Now I'm not an expert, but when you start searching through these, you'll find like the Climax ones, the round Climax are pretty plentiful. You'll see a lot of these ones here, which I just pulled out to show the links. Like you'll find a lot of links, the Granger Twist, some of the ones Patrick has, you see, that he mentioned the Granger Twist. You see those a lot. But then you come to things like Katie Tobacco or Keyhole. And it's like, I've never seen the 10 or heard of the tobacco, let alone the little tobacco tag. So it's trying to figure out which ones you want to pay up for.
Like this one has a little battle scene on it called Round Top, which I think was in Gettysburg. This sold for $125. Yep. $125 for just a tiny little tag that probably was produced in the thousands. But they weren't designed to be kept. It's like little pieces they're technically ephemera. They just happen to be metal ephemera.
And one thing that I found, because I got that big lot this week, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault, but the guy hammered them all into a pretty stiff cardboard thing, and they're pretty hard to get off once you do that. And you can see that the metal comes off. So these, even though they have the gorgeous lithography on a lot of them, they probably didn't survive very well because the metal just flakes, the lithography just flakes right off of these if you're not.
And this one sold for $110. But I think the reason that one sold for so much, because suddenly that's getting into cross popularity. Somebody probably had the dog. So this one, it had 9 bids and it went up to $110. So... but then like this one, I don't know what the cross collectability would be unless you really have an ethereal love for Bambi. Thumper, I don't, it's muscular arm holding a hammer, but that sold for $108, and that's like, those are sold. These are not listed. These are solds.
Now this one's listed and I tried to look for solds and couldn't find any, but the starting bid on this Peepo Day one is $9. The lot that I was looking at today, and I didn't win, had Old Sledge in it. And that one went up to $40.
Oh, that would
Actually,
have a Huckster in it too. But yeah, that
yeah,
is a nicer version of the old Sledge card hand. I have the cards, but it's in really crappy condition
yeah. And
because
the
it
old,
happens. So at some point I have it in my collection, but if I ever get a better one, I'll then retire the garbagey one.
and,
Unfortunately, some of the really valuable ones, I'm not going to say valuable ones, some of the ones that are going for more money are maybe the more controversial ones. So like I just showed the Jefferson Davis, but there's others that would go into the idea of the representation of individuals, racial representations that would not be popular now. Some people collect that for its merit. Other people collect it maybe for the wrong reason, but whatever, you've got multiple people trying to reclaim those so they don't get destroyed. And so some of the pieces, if you were to look at the sold comps, I've skipped some of them. You'll see what I'm talking about. So it's part of history. We're not going to talk about that. We may talk about it someday. But in general, I think Katie and I are still at we might pay, like I'm looking at it a lot that I have the opportunity to pick up that will probably cost me over $200, but it's a huge lot.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's one of those cases like, okay, it's a lot of money, but per tag, it actually won't be that bad. So then it's kind of like, well, do I want to do that? And then like, somebody mentioned this in the chat, I think last week, or maybe one of the videos. I would love to find other people that are collecting these. And like somebody said, like the kids used to trade these like trading cards. I'd be all over that.
That
Just
would
find a
be
group of
cool.
us that all just collect them, and you suddenly have a duplicate. You just drop one in the, do it like a chain letter. You drop one into the mail to one person, and they drop one of theirs into the mail to somebody else, or you swap them back and forth, whatever. They can be inexpensive to collect. That Splendid is there's a whole series of them, and I think
Yeah,
that would be fun to collect the series because
yeah.
they like each one has different color flag combinations. So this could get dangerous, as you get into the. But I now have 5 of the 6 versions, and suddenly you're gonna be out there. You're gonna be the one paying $100 to get the
Yeah.
6th one because you need to have it.
Well, this one I'm looking at, it is $14 right now. And I just think the graphics on that are fabulous. But I mean, you think about something this small, do you really want to pay $14 because you've never seen it? Or maybe there's another one that is out there, but it's in a lot and it's in worse condition. This one, the current bid is $13.59. And I am really tempted to go for this one. I mean, the graphics are cool. Sometimes you just can't beat some of those graphics, but trying to figure out which ones you want to pay up for, because
Yeah.
you're not sure if you're going to see it again. Researching them I found is hard when you type in, say, dice tobacco. Well, you may not, or dice tobacco tag. You may not get dice tobacco tag. You might get tobacco tags. You might get other things with dice on them because for whatever reason in the search, it doesn't seem to pick it up. So I haven't quite figured out how to properly research these. They're
No.
kind of tough because it's not like Climax where they made 1,000,001 Climax things and it's a recognizable tobacco brand that lasted, I'm assuming, quite a while. So they do come up on eBay. Some of these, like Patrick said, they were only around like a year. So how do you even find out information about that?
I mean, I joke about it, but I think that the muscularity of that arm would make it attractive to certain individuals as well. That it's a very masculine representation. And like, I'm sorry, the whole box that I just showed, the tins that we showed, it's called Climax. I mean, clearly they were catering to many different factors in how to attract people to purchase their tobacco. And so these were some of the earliest. They did kind of drift away from the tags to get into more paper labels and representation that way. Where we're trying to figure out the crossover are things like the coupons, because we know that they did coupons up until at least into the 70s, if not beyond, because we found catalogs that are that late where you could collect the little coupons from either a pack of cigarettes or a pouch of tobacco or however you bought it. Sometimes the coupon had half written on it because you bought a small amount of tobacco or whatever. You didn't even count as a full coupon, and you could collect them and trade them in for all kinds of stuff. Well, those catalogs date back to like 1910. Well, were they doing paper coupons at that point, or were you literally collecting these little metal tags and then somehow giving those back? which would be, I'm sorry, to a certain extent dangerous, because those spikes are sharp.
Sure.
I mean, these things are literally 100 years old, and I've like drawn blood. So these are, making sure my tetanus is up to date. The idea of collecting 100 of these, or I'm like some of the prizes that you could get, they were called presents. And I found that it was like universally, they were called presents. And so if you found a catalog of presents, you could literally turn in thousands of these and you would get a shotgun, or you would get like, huge pieces of furniture. So you would be collecting these over a huge period of time, thousands of these. Where would you be putting them? And then who's counting them once you've turned them in? So I don't know if there was but they did call them coupons. So I don't know if they would have also come with a piece of paper in addition to the tag. So those are things that we're still trying to figure out. I'm really hoping my book will share a little bit of that.
I hope so too. I might get that book. If Patrick likes the book, I will definitely get the book as well, because I'm all about the research and having that physical library to reference. And I think that learning more about these will be fabulous. And it would be so cool if there was a trade show for these, or a particular advertising event in the near future when things get better, that we could go to and talk to someone that's been collecting these for ages, because they probably have talked to other collectors that found out this piece of information from somebody here, and you just learn a little bit. And I found that's also one of the best ways to learn about things that are not as easily researchable online.
Yeah. And so what Cha-Cha was saying is research the tobacco farms. I think some of the history will be found in the company itself. So like Lorillard is going to be more difficult because they were one of the first ones to do it, and they've been around for a long time. And I think they're credited as being the very first branded tobacco in the United States. They had hundreds of brand names, and I don't know what dictated it. Was it like by a farm, or was it by state, or whatever? So if we could find a smaller company that maybe was around for a shorter period of time, that maybe they had 10 brands, so then you could kind of chase it that way. So sometimes the tobacco tins give a little bit more information because there's more room. So they would list the tobacco brand plus maybe the company that made it and or where the company was made. So, but again, I love the research aspect of it. So it's definitely something that to me has been fun. I am at the point, and I think Katie is reaching the same point. She just started like a week after me. So we're basically catching up to the same spot, where at some point you get to, well, I want to buy this lot because on a per tag basis, it's relatively cheap. But then you're like, but I already have half of the examples in the lot. So is it really that cheap? Is that really what I want to spend my money on? Or do I want to say, you know what, this one's really cool. And yes, it's $10 for a tag all by itself, but it's a tag I know I don't have. And in some cases, we haven't been doing it for long, but these are tags we can't find other places. So it's like, okay, it's $20. I haven't found it anyplace else. So like one of my favorites of Katie's is a very simple one, but it just has the word pug hammered into it. It's like the lithography is not going to disappear. It's going to say pug forever. And I just love that, because what somebody was branding as a pug, which is brilliant. People always love their dogs. But that's the only brand that we found. And then Katie, she found the one that said Katie, and it's just like, okay, those are just, you got to pick those up. Yes, you end up paying those. So the tags themselves, from what we know, we were assuming the companies that were producing the tobacco plugs would have probably had the die cutters in-house, because from what we understand, it wouldn't quite be like this, but imagine it along these lines. You'd probably have a sheet of the metal that you would then silk screen or lithography. I don't know the full process, but you would print the entire design with yellow, with all the tiny little circles or squares or diamonds or whatever shape you were doing. And then you'd have a solid sheet that did that. And then you would press the die cut into it, because we both found examples where the name is not quite centered. It's a little off to the side. So at some point, either the little thing wasn't straight or somebody was in a rush. So we're assuming these were probably made in-house as opposed to outside, because they were also making the packaging, the tins, like a lot of that probably probably would have been vertically integrated, but they're so small. I've never seen anything on them to indicate who makes them. Like that there would be another, like the tins sometimes say, but the boxes, the tags are just, they're
Yeah,
too
they
small.
don't. And I think that these would probably be unlike the typewriter ribbon tins where the ribbon was added from another place and the tins were manufactured separately. With a lot of the typewriter ribbon tins, they would use leftover metal. They would actually manufacture a whole
Oh,
bunch of
interesting.
cans. Say at one time, the American Can Company was known for doing this, is they would make a whole bunch of round cans out of sheets, and then the little leftover pieces they would stamp out and make the typewriter ribbon tins. And I don't think that was necessarily the case with these. I do think that they were probably manufactured in one big sheet and stamped out. Now, how that was done exactly, I don't 100% know. I know that lithography, offset lithography in general for the tobacco companies was really important because they needed a way, one, to have tins for the tobacco so it didn't get stale and dry out. And then the other thing was that when you had so many tobacco brands on one shelf, you had to be able to distinguish yourself, and you had to have something cool and eye-catchy and eye-catching. And that really was the best way to do it, was with the invention of offset lithography in the 1870s, I think.
Yeah, 1870s. That's when the tags became.
Yeah.
That kind of took off. Late 70s, 80s. The first ones, like you had the music one. I don't have too many of the like totally simple ones, but they make up for the colors. They make up for it with the font. They're just cool. So in some cases they had to make them more artistic to make them stand out because you didn't have anything else. But once they started doing the lithography, you could then cut out a simple circle, but it could have whatever you want. Like it could show anything because you just change the art. So that would actually be an interesting deep dive triptych at some point as well, as just the history of the lithography to say, like, how does the process even work? Because truly, I don't even know how printing works now. So, the idea of how they were doing it 120 years ago is probably even more fascinating.
It would be really interesting to take a deep dive into that. I just don't 100% know, but that would be something I'd love to know. So, I mean, there's so many great ones here.
And we've also discovered, just again from I don't even know how many I would have at this point, or Katie, but in some cases the metal is very, very thin. Yes. And so as you're dealing with the little tags, in some cases they come to us bent and you want them flat or whatever. Sometimes they're super, super thin. Other times they're very thick, where I've not been able to easily flatten it back out. So I don't know if that's a sign of age. Like maybe initially they were made out of slightly thicker material, or what that necessarily. Oh, that's cool. Or necessarily if that just was, maybe it's like the American Can Companies, whatever metal they had around at the time. But if that horseshoe company had already printed 100 million pieces or 100 million of that, these things were being made in bulk and it would have had to been made quickly. So I don't know at what point they were completely automated, but you picture how a printing press was done at that time. Just picturing like the sheet metal goes down, it comes down, stamp, put another sheet metal down, stamp, another sheet metal down, stamp, and then these things were just flying out or going down into a bin or whatever. And then somebody was probably manually hammering them into the individual pieces of tobacco.
I'd love to know, as you get closer to the 30s, particularly if they use thinner metal to save costs, and if the reason why these ceased to exist after that time is because during the 30s, people didn't have the extra money for this type of thing. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but it would be something I'd love to explore if we could ever find the answers. There's just so many unknowns, but that makes the research really fun because you go down so many different rabbit holes.
And it's one of the cases that, depending on what people collect, like I've never had any. Well, I've never had any. Oh, that's beautiful. I've never had any desire to collect Tobacciana. That would not be true. But because I've never smoked, it was just not anything I necessarily wanted to build a collection around because I didn't feel like I deserved it. But I found these, to me, this is vintage advertising, and so this drifted into something totally different. They just happen to be tobacco oriented. That now I'm looking at, okay, well, what kind of books are there on Tobacciana or on cigars or on cigarettes? And so a lot of it now I'll look online and say, okay, what's the table of contents? And the table of contents will usually say like what they're covering. And very rarely I've never found any that actually say tobacco tags. Some will have a section that say, tobacco miscellaneous or tobacco accessories or something like that. But those could be cigar nippers or something like that. It's not necessarily the tags. So to my knowledge, there might be 2 books. There was one reference to a book that I haven't found in print yet that might have been talking about the same book that just called it a different name. So that's what I'm trying to find out. I just don't think there's a lot of research done on these because they're not expensive. And I've yet to, like I said, they're plentiful online. Like there's hundreds of them listed online right now, but they're not particularly valuable. And I will say, based on how quickly people are accepting offers or extending offers to us to buy them,
Yeah.
they've probably been online for a long time. I don't think there's a lot of collectors for these.
No, I don't think that a lot of people collect these. And it's interesting because I was talking to one of my buddies that I know through Instagram, and I buy from his shop all the time, Hud's Curios. I love him. Peter, he actually deals in Tobacco tins. And I sent him a message through our chat on Etsy, and I said, hey, have you ever heard of these? And he had never heard of them, and he's been dealing for quite a long time. So I don't know that a ton of people actually know what these are. And that's kind of cool because you're like, ooh, look at my new collection.
Well, that became another, actually, now that you say that, Hud's Curios, he's the one based in the UK, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I got another comment. I don't think she's in the chat tonight, but from Mel from Milliart. She was asking me about it. She sent me a private message trying to find out if there were any other terms or whatever. She can't find any in Finland either. And so we started thinking these were designed these are designed to mark the product as they were going to the end user. But if you were shipping to Europe, I'm not sure you would have already made the plug. You might be shipping an entire crate of loose tobacco that would go to a tobacconist or go to a chemist or whatever in Europe. And then they would do whatever they did with it, put it in a jar, put it into their own. So those tags may never have crossed the ocean. Like those might be a completely American thing, not by design, but just by practice, because by the time the weight that those would add to the tobacco would have a cost. And if they don't need them, like the whole reason they're used here was to keep people from knocking off the brands. Maybe they're more, I don't know, proper in Europe and they weren't doing that. So they just didn't feel it was necessary to do those types of tags because she was actively looking for them based on their first discussion and she could not find anything. And so the only thing she could think was maybe they were by another name. And I gave her all the references I could come up with or what they were called. And it's just now it's an assumption, but maybe they just didn't exist. They just didn't do it over there.
It's also interesting to note that a lot of the tins I've gotten from Peter are English branded tobacco. So they're not something that we would have necessarily had here. And so I think that he finds a lot of different tins I just can't get here in the States, and they're amazing. But it's possible that some of the U.S. tobacco never made it overseas, some of the brands. So I would love to learn more about that, And
if they sold most of it in tins, then the tin was what did the branding. You didn't need the tag anymore.
Yeah.
So like that, I think the tag was going into things when people had their own pouches. Yes. We've all seen them. I did a video one time and I showed, I think it was boar's head tobacco. It was like a silver plate or a pewter, beautiful desktop humidor that had the can in there. Well, you wouldn't need a plug. Like you would need a tag. Like you bought the whole tin that's set into this. You didn't need that. So it kind of just depends on how they were selling it in Europe back at that time. Because they definitely were smoking. Yeah. And there's a whole world of snuff that I keep getting tempted by, and I'm missing. But there's some really cool snuff tins, and they're like totally tiny. I'm like, oh, those are totally collectible. So it's we'll have to figure those out.
And also cigarettes, a lot of them were already sold together in the cigarette form. You wouldn't have rolled your cigarette. I mean, I'm sure some people did roll the cigarettes, but a lot of times, like you buy Lucky Strike here in the United States, and they already come together in a pocket-sized 10, so you wouldn't have needed necessarily to have these tags.
I think I just got a Lucky Strike one too, and I found that interesting because I didn't know Lucky Strike did loose.
No,
I thought they just did manufactured.
Yeah.
at some point, I talked about this one other time, but a long time ago. I purchased an app which I use called Catalog It, and that is what my latest attempts have been. I am entering my tobacco tags into Catalog It,
cool.
so that I will not lose track of which ones I already own. And if I get a better condition of one, I can replace it. But you can tag it. So like if I have more than one Climax piece, I can find all the Climax pieces that I have. Because in some cases over, decades, they did change over time. Or if we wanted to, I've started tagging them as Lorillard. A lot of the Lorillard ones actually say Lorillard. Like even though there's no space on it, it still says Lorillard. Like they wanted credit. They're like, we did this, you're going to know it. So I've tried to even connect some of that stuff. But it's called the site is called, it's called Catalog It. That's the icon on there. And so it's designed to maintain, and I do believe there was a cost to it, but it wasn't expensive. I wouldn't have bought it if it was expensive. And it's one of those that it takes time to build it up. So like one of the things I've done is I've taken pictures of all the individual tobacco tags as I've gotten them. I've also been doing it for some of my hat pin brooch combinations and some of my other collection. And now when I go to rehearsal, there's a lot of downtime as we're getting closer to the show. We're just doing stretches on end, and I'm not in the entire show. So I just sit there and I'm like updating my cataloging, and it's like I feel like a little museum specialist, like making my own little my little connection. So
that's a great way.
Yeah. So I mean, when I initially, I probably started it during COVID. So I've only had it maybe a year and a half, but I did research a couple of different options at the time. I think somebody wrote an article or something that said, here are the things that did it. This was the one that, through combination of, it was an inexpensive one, relatively easy to use, and still did what I needed it to do. Like some of them were they were almost truly for a museum. Like they have subcategories and all these things about acquisition, like assigning an acquisition number and, all these other things and conservation notes. Yeah, I don't need that. Yeah. that's beyond what I need. So this one has some other stuff that I'm not using that I'm sure, you could take it to the nth degree, but it's user friendly enough, because then as I started putting my salt glaze collection in there. When I travel, I want to know what I already have, because more than once I've bought something I already own. Not with the salt glaze, but with some other pieces, because I love that one. Yeah, I loved it 2 years ago and I bought it the last time too. So if you don't remember what you bought, and I would try and take pictures of my collections, but as the collections have grown, sometimes it's even hard from within a picture to recognize. So this one I can do it alphabetically, and if I find another Union Club, I can pull up and I can look, oh wait, I already have that Union Club. I don't need another one. So
particularly as these get larger in volume, because there's so little and you get so many of them. I mean, I don't even have all of them back in my little dish, but you can just see I probably have 40 of them right here. It's hard to kind of remember, as time goes on, which ones you have. I know with records, I have totally bought records I already had. And because I'm like, I think I have that Andy Williams, but Andy Williams put out a ton of records, and I probably have 30 Andy Williams, and the covers all look the same because it's Andy Williams on the cover. And I've bought records. I mean, I haven't paid very much for them, but I've gotten them. I'm like, oh yeah, I do have that one. So I'm like, which one is in better condition? Which one's an original press? And now I can sell the other one. So I think eventually with these tobacco tags, that will happen as we buy lots. We'll look, like Patrick said, and say, okay, this one's better. I will keep this one and then trade, and it would be cool if we could start a whole community of trading. I think that would be really wonderful.
Yeah, because particularly with what I like about the Catalog It app is it does have the pictures part of it. So it's kind of like a twofold, because one, condition is going to be key. Like there's going to be ones that maybe I'll mentally remember. Like if I ever come across one of those old Sledge holding the playing cards, I know that mine is crap. Like I know that I need to upgrade it. So like that one I'd remember, but some of the other ones I'd want to be able to look at the picture and go, oh yeah, that one's really chipped up. Like it was fine enough to read the label, but this one's better. So yeah, I can decide, do I want to buy another one? And this is no offense to Katie, and Katie will do the same thing to me. I will then just bump my secondary quality that goes to her. You know, if she doesn't have it, then she can do the same thing and try and replace it. But the other piece would end up being, and this was, we showed it earlier, when I got those Newsboy tags, I actually got those in 2 different lots. I happened to buy them around the same time, but I actually got them through 2 different sellers. And I told Katie, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm going to have duplicates. I'm going to give you this Newsboy one. I'm going to give you this, not thinking. And then when they showed up and I looked at them, I realized, oh, wait, these aren't the same. They're both different. Newsboy, but they're different. So I'm like, yeah, sorry, Katie, you're not getting it. I'm keeping it. Sorry. And that's, so you need to have the pictures for that too, because now I'm going to run it. I don't want to say I have a list that just text gives me, oh, Newsboy. Then I'd be like, oh, yeah, I already have Newsboy. But this could be like a really cool version, like that original one that Katie found that's much older. I'd love to own that one. Now, I'm not thinking I wouldn't pay $20 for it, but if I come across it, I would hate to confuse myself. Like, oh, no, I already have Newsboy. I don't need another one. Because one of the things I'm doing now, and I've got to enter it into catalog it, but for now it's not in catalog it, it's in my notes. These are the chauffeur pins that I bought. Most of them, all but 3 of them, were purchased this week. So at some point I'm going to have the images loaded up, but for now I need to have the years and the states of which ones I have. Now the Illinois ones, I'm going to buy multiples because that's where I live, and I have no problem getting one from every year, but I don't want 2 from the same year. But at some point, you know, I might discover, wait, such and such state did 2 different versions in the same year. I need both. Like, you know, at some point I'm going to want that. And they're like, there's a couple thresholds that I'm putting in to kind of keep myself under check. Illinois, I will probably just continue to purchase just so I have the full collection. But for the other states, I want them to be die cut in some way. So they're not just a square, or they're not just a circle. Like there's some sort of detail in them. And I'm trying to get all of them pre-World War II. So the oldest in my collection of what I've purchased, I think the oldest one is 1925. So that happens to be an Illinois one. I have found some from the teens, but those go for a little bit more money. So I haven't purchased any of those yet. But you know, having the pictures of it, I can decide, oh, this is a better condition, or nope, I don't have this one and I want to add it. So.
And that's the beautiful thing about keeping track of all of that. You can easily know, like, okay, which ones do I have and which ones I don't. And actually, I used eBay a little bit as a catalog system the other morning when Louis jumped up onto my spool table and knocked this entire dish down. They went all over the floor. I picked Louis up because she's a pug and pugs eat everything. And I put her in the kennel.
These would be very bad for her to eat.
I don't want to make another trip to the ER, you know. And I literally got on the floor with a magnet and scoured the floor with a magnet looking for all these, because they're tiny. In fact, one of them that I just had, I mean, it was even smaller than this size here. So, I mean, it was little. And so I got the magnet, and then I literally went through eBay and I started going through it, and I was like, okay, I have this one, this one, this one, this one. And I, you know, but eventually as I buy more things, that's going to go away. So I need to catalog that. But luckily I got all of them, and I knew they were all safely back in the dish and moved away from Louis.
Well, that's how, like with my first couple, I also lost one. They're very small. They will very easily disappear. And it was one of those, I hadn't quite gotten to the point of, well, I actually did end up doing it, but I suddenly realized, didn't I buy a battle axe? And I'm still looking at my collection, which at that point was still it did nice little flat lay. It was all in a tray. It was lovely. And I was just like, I thought I bought one of those. And so I did have to go back into eBay, and I realized that I had bought it, and I suddenly couldn't find it. I had done an entire video and it wasn't in the cover image for the video. So at some point between the point I held it up for the video to the point where I took a picture, I'd lost it. And it had fallen underneath. I had a stack of 3 depression glass bonbon dishes stacked on top of each other. It had slid underneath one of them, and it was small enough I couldn't see it. And then just when I was prepping for this, the number 4, it happens to be one that doesn't have any lithography on it. And my counter is like, it has a mottled color to it, but I had poured these out. That's the color of my counter. I'd taken all the ones I purchased and I was putting them onto the magnets and realized I was out, and I was putting the rest into my tin. This one totally disappeared onto the counter. And it wasn't until I set my glass down to refill, my glass hit this and started tipping. But I'm like, what's going on? And I realized I didn't realize I'd missed it. So
I think I have a 7, Patrick.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yes, I've got a couple letters. I've got an R. I think I've got a B, but I think that's the only number I have. Oh, this one I didn't show. This was one of my favorites.
Look for this one.
The sickle.
Oh, I know you really wanted that.
Yeah, so I got that one today. So I was super excited to get that one. That one was fun. So some of them just have really cool shapes. I've got the duck, the long bill, the bird bill coming off of it.
I love that one.
So yeah, these are the ones that were sitting down at the bottom. Olive leaf. Yeah, so some of them are die cut into shapes, but even the ones that are just circles, if you've got the lithography, you can still get some pretty cool designs. So like this one, Williams Company, it's got a plum in the middle of it.
Oh, that one's gorgeous.
I've got one that has a clover in the middle of it. So it's like, even though it's just a circle, it still looks really cool.
Oh, you've got the clover one. I've been looking for that one. I can't find the 7. They get kind of all mixed together, but I do have a couple of letters. So
yeah, that wasn't a lot, and that was like, Heather, that was one, the olive leaf. There was probably 15 in the lot. 6 or 7 of them I already had. And then I'm looking at the rest, and the olive leaf was one of them that I'm like, okay, are the rest of these good enough? Oh, cool. Rest of these good enough to actually pay for. And I liked that one and a couple others enough that I'm like, you know what? Yeah. So like in those cases, I probably paid more like $4 each for the ones that I'm keeping. But then I also know that Katie is going to get some of them, and then she might send some to me that she gets duplicates of. I think I might have the S.
Yeah, so this one is Finzer. And this one is really tiny and it's hard to read. Oh, this one's Finzers. Now this is interesting because it's Finzers with an S. The other one is just Finzer.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't really know the differences, and I got to get my loop out because there's something else on the other side, but it is.
Well, because I've got this one. Let's see if I can actually show it. The tiny red one is a Finzer.
Oh.
At the very top, the tiny, tiny, tiny one says Finzer on it.
This one just says that.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Maybe there's another one that says this.
Is cool.
Well, and also cool, like I showed the brown mule one, but I've got 2 different versions, which I'm keeping. This one at the top is not, the area underneath his legs is not cut out. So he's a little bit, his head is still die cut, but the rest of it's solid, where the other one, they actually cut out an area. So this one's got a little bit more detail to him. And I don't know if that means this one a little bit older, maybe when they were putting more time into it, or maybe that's later because they had more accurate cutting tools that could make the smaller. But like, I like this one as a combination of the cool font and color.
Yes.
So you've got Myrtle on here. Now, this is something that I'm also seeing a lot of. I am wondering, do you have any that have the big, like it looks like a BB mark in it? I'm wondering if these were targets.
Yeah,
like kids found them and put them in the backyard, and they were trying to shoot them. I have many that have this like a perfectly circular ding just in the middle of the item, and I'm wondering if this is something kids would use as target practice with their BB guns.
It's very possible that they did. I don't have any, but I have seen a lot of them that way online. This one's interesting.
And it totally chips the paint. The lithography gets totally screwed up because it gets chipped off. But
so this one is, I think it says, oh no, I thought it said something, but I can't read it in the middle. But this is Climax grade. So this one is really small. And then look, this one is exactly the same word in the middle, but it's McCannon's, I think, Delight. And they almost look exactly the same.
Oh, see, now I thought the Climax one, I thought that said Lorillard. That doesn't have the Lorillard name in it.
So that's what I find really interesting. And these obviously are the same word in the middle. I'm pretty sure of it. And so I don't know. I got to get the loop out to read what that says. But I don't know if Climax or Loriards had different.
Yeah, so mine has Climax in the middle. It says Loriards at the top.
Now, I do have a Climax one that has the Loriards on it. But this
And here
one,
is, I was talking about this earlier. This is the Lucky Strike one.
Oh, I would love to find that one, Patrick. Yeah, see,
So like this
one,
is the R.A. Patterson Tobacco Company. So again, this is Richmond, Virginia, as opposed to North Carolina. So the Patterson would have been competed against Loriard. So you might be able to research from that perspective.
which is really interesting. Now I have a tiny one, Patrick, like little red, and that might be the one that you showed in the lithography on it is gone. This one is Uric, I think, or Ure. I don't know, but look at the diamond on it. Oh, okay, now I can read it better.
Euchre.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to see when you're looking at it up close. But the camera does a great job showing that.
Yeah,
I love the diamond on that.
Yeah, so that I'm assuming that must be a brand, but it's kind of cool that it's another like playing cards one.
And this
also,
one
there's not a lot of variety. Sometimes you just get there. A lot of them are red. Both Katie and I have discovered that a lot of them are just red or yellow. We're not sure why, but like this one, it looks like at a glance, I thought it was another Climax one, but this one's Rebecca.
See, it has that same scripty font.
Yep.
With that word on, and I'm sure it's the same word. I'm not sure. This one's hers luck.
Here's luck.
Here's luck. Yeah.
Here's luck. Here's luck. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's here's luck, not hers.
Yeah. See, this one I think says Loriard.
Yeah.
See, I think there's an initial in the front of it.
Yeah, I think so too, Patrick.
But it's got that double L in the middle.
This one almost looks like it has an apostrophe, but I think it's just a mess up in the tag in the I think it is here's luck. This one,
but I'm also getting to a point now where I want to collect the different colors. Ooh, I like that one.
I like this
because I have almost zero blue ones.
Yes.
So I've got Tailor Made as a blue one. Like it's just there's red and yellow seems to really rule the roost.
Yes. And I wonder why. Is that the color that was easiest to use? Oh man.
So I like that one again because of the color variation.
And that one's larger, Patrick.
Yes. This one's not quite as big as the navy ones are the largest ones. And then this is another version of the same brand, but it has the rooster on it.
Oh, that is
got the Mayo's Tobacco Always Good. So it's the same brand, just at maybe a different time that they did it.
And I still love the pins.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just cool. I see a question in the chat. Antique Agenda is asking if we end up researching the tobacco companies once you buy the tag. Sometimes you just can't find any information on those companies.
Yeah, a lot. I will say I've not done enough, I've not been successful in the ones I have hunted for. No. And Katie's been kind of my earpiece for a lot of it because she has the tins, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I have that tin," or like the knapsack one. We found that one together, and she's like, "Ooh, the knapsack, the tin is super expensive," and so is actually the tag, way more than I was willing to pay, but Katie was like, "Hey, if I can't have the tobacco tin, I'll buy the tobacco tag." So yeah.
I'll pay $9 instead of $900.
Exactly.
And
then there's things like this, Made of Athens, that unfortunately she lost some of the color on her face, but like that was one I definitely wanted to grab.
This one is big. I used to know what it said until I scraped it.
Oh yeah.
To pry it off.
But it's still the image of it. It's still a Canon.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
And there's another Cannonball one that has a full cannon. It's yellow and black, and it has the cannonballs stacked up. That I think is excellent.
And I would say the ones for specific, so people see Heather's question. I definitely have not tried to do it across the board. There were some of the ones I picked up, particularly the ones in lots, there's usually one or two that I'm really interested in. So like once I get the Huckster one, I will probably, because he's not a huckster. He just happens to be a guy in a top hat, but to me, he's going
Yeah,
to be a
but
huckster. I'm going to want to look to see who that company is and then what other advertising they did. So less so to figure out, well, where were they or where did they come from? Like I don't anticipate building the collection based on the manufacturing of it necessarily, unless I find something interesting about that. Like I actually lived for a couple of years in tobacco plantation country. So like where my house was built on an old tobacco farm, probably a plantation. So like, and in that whole area, there were always the tobacco drying, we've had all that stuff was around us. So if I suddenly discover a company that was based in La Plata, Maryland, I'll buy that. Yeah, it's like suddenly that's a connection that is this from my own farm, from my own land? I would be interested in that. But in general, it's all the art at this point.
Yeah.
Even the Climax, like the Climax is kind of a funny name, but I'm not buying it for that. They just did a lot of advertising.
Yeah.
And so some of their advertisements are very cool. Katie and I both bought the plug cutter. At this point, we cannot find anything that advertises that brand as tobacco. We literally can only find any references to it as a cutter. So we don't know if this cutter was made independently. Like this was just, hey, you, Mr. Tobacconist, you need a plug cutter. You can buy branded ones, but if you sell multiple brands, do you want just a fun one? And this is an imp thumbing his nose. It's a cool piece. Mine says, what does mine say? Brighton, I think it says.
And I did find this article today, which I thought was interesting. It's off of Koval's, which, they do the antique price guides, the bottle books, all of that kind of stuff. And this was 15 years ago. So, I don't know how accurate. I would assume it's history, so this probably still stands. But this person sent in this cutter, which is exactly the one I have. And mine does not say Brighton. So I went down a whole rabbit hole trying to figure out, hey, why does mine not say Brighton? Like I would think that he is the Brighton elf, but it says here that the person had asked about if this cutter is actually old because supposedly it came out of an old pharmacy that operated in the late 1800s, mid 1900s, which makes sense for the cut plug. And the answer from the Koval's website says, yes, you have a tobacco cutter. Back when tobacco was sold in plugs, every tobacco shop had a countertop tobacco cutter. Around the turn of the century, Wrightsville Hardware Company, now John Wright of Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, made an unpainted cast iron top tobacco cutter with an elf thumbing his nose at the world, called the Brighton Cutter No. 3. It was reissued by John Wright in the 1970s. Both the original and the 1970s Wright cutters are embossed Brighton No. 3 on the base. But there may have been an even earlier 19th century version with the same design without the Brighton mark. Yours looks like an old cutter in the collection of the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan. Like your cutter, it has a curled tobacco leaf in the place of Brighton and a large tobacco leaf on the handle, which I thought was cool because I just thought it was a neat kind of 1800s scrolly.
Yours is way more detailed than mine.
And it is a tobacco leaf.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize it.
So they're saying that the Brighton 3, that those are reproductions?
Well, they said that they had an original version of the Brighton 3, and then it was also reissued in the 70s with Brighton 3. So I guess there's really it doesn't say that there's a way to tell the difference.
Oh, bummer. Mine's still cool and I like it, but it'd be bummer only from the 70s.
I do think yours is older because it did say that it had the painted elf thumbing his nose.
Yeah, mine has red on it.
Yeah, so I think yours is older. It's one of the original Brighton No. 3s.
And we did see when we were researching them, there's some that red is super bright. Yes. And it looked weird. And we thought that they were just repainted, but maybe those are the ones from the 70s.
Yeah, I think yours has legit age to it. You can just tell by the bottom because they were bolted to a counter. Yeah. So I don't think Patrick has the reproduction. I don't think I have the reproduction, but I just thought it was interesting that there's two different versions. And now that I found that article, I would love to see the one in the Henry Ford Museum.
But there's one locally in Facebook Marketplace that's available for $100. That's the Climax plug cutter. So they're trying to get more
Oh,
money out of it specifically because it says climax written all the way across the arch of it. That people, they're probably, I don't even know if they knew it was a plug cutter. I think they were just selling it because it said climax on it, but they wanted too much money for it. And they're expensive to ship because they're cast
yeah.
iron. They're very heavy. But it's a fun collection to build because I've never had this type of a collection before. And once we discovered they were magnetic, it's like, oh, okay, this changes things. I can now display them because I had a small dish. That's what I used for my thumbnail for the first video I made. Then I bought more, and suddenly I had to move it to a larger dish, and they still looked good. But then I bought more, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with these? Like, I can't have dishes laying, like little flat lay dishes laying all over the place. And when you start putting them like Katie did in a ashtray, they all start flat folding upon themselves. They just kind of stack, and it's hard to actually see. Like, I tried to put them in a little junk jar, but they just all laid on top of each other, and you really couldn't see anything. So once I discovered that, I'm really excited about this because this also happens to be the size of an album frame. It's 12 by 12. So I can take the glass out of a cheap album frame, place this in there, and suddenly hang it on the wall. And I barely have any on here. I could triple how much are showing, and suddenly have an area to put them that it's a little bit easier to display.
Well, off to the other side of me here, if I can rotate my camera a little bit, I have these industrial red lockers. Now, the problem is that the lockers, the front of them are red. So a lot of these that are red won't show up. But if I wanted to change this side panel, I could just start running them down the side panels and put magnetic. But I love what Patrick did with that long climax plug box, and I actually got one. I'm waiting for it to arrive, and I think that will be fun to start my display in there. And then as I get more, maybe I'll start scaling the side of the locker.
And it holds a lot. That the lid ends up holding a lot. And then what I'm going to do in the bottom, I have a handful of cigarette cards and rolling papers and just other types of ephemera, tax stamps. I just have a little tobacco themed little garden, maybe using flower frogs or something to hold it all up. So, well, we were on much longer than I anticipated, but again, this was fun. I appreciate everybody hanging out. I hope everyone's enjoying it. Probably spent a little bit too much time the last week and this week talking about tobacco tags. If you're not really big into tobacco, but hey, something shiny will come by soon and we'll look at something else. So I will probably have some of my chauffeur badges next week. So maybe I'll showcase those and have something slightly different to talk about. But that was pretty much it. I didn't list anything new onto my eBay or Etsy channel this week. Meant to, but haven't yet.
Did the scrapbook sell?
The scrapbook did sell. It didn't sell for as much as I would have anticipated. It ended up having 7 watchers and only one bid though. So it sold for its opening bid of $35. So it's like I made my money, but I would have thought it would have been worth more. But the cover had fallen off of it. So that was definitely a very big detractor. If you wanted to keep it together, you would have to figure out how to mend the cover. So I have a feeling who buys it might end up, unfortunately, splitting it up because there were probably 50 or 60 vintage Christmas cards from the 30s in there. You put some undo it on those, they're going to come off perfectly fine. Even if you sell them for $2 a piece, they're going to be more than double their money just from that. And they're worth more than $2 a piece. But I just didn't want to break the scrapbook apart. But I did my part. I kept it together, putting it into somebody else's hands. And if they choose to break it apart, I can't do anything about it. So I was disappointed it didn't sell for more, but I made the money. It's what I would have sold it for if I'd sold it on my live sale. So, totally fine with what I got for it. That's how I price it in eBay. Just let the market figure it out. So that did sell earlier this evening. And I went to an auction and I picked up I didn't know it at the time, although I did suspect it. I picked up some pieces that are they ended up being Franklin Mint pieces. So they're from 1981, this set of small vases. They did one a month. So there should be 12. I only have 3. But I picked those up for relatively inexpensively. And then also these little teacups. Oh,
those are lovely.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Like Franklin Mint does some really beautiful pieces. It's not always to everyone's taste. But these are ending up being vintage in their own right. I mean, these are all from 1980, 1981. But some of the designs, these were all floral. Again, there were 12 of these. I only have 4, but some of the florals that are done on them are beautiful. You know,
Yeah,
there's
really
just,
lovely.
and they're it's perfect condition. There's no chips, no cracks. So I'm probably going to put these up just as a for sale. I'm not even going to do them as an auction. I'll just put them up for what I think they're going to be worth, based on what others have sold for. So probably the 3 vases will probably go up for around maybe 25, $30 as a set. And then probably the same, even though there's 4 of these, probably 25 to 30 for the set of 4. Because the individual ones sell for $20 a piece because people are trying to finish a set. I don't want to have these for the rest of my days, so I'm just going to sell them at a reasonable price, and get rid of them. So it was an auction that I had been to before. I still enjoyed it. I did try and grab some video, but it ended up not being very good audio. So I'm probably not going to be able to use it. And I tried to figure out if I could do like a live stream from there, but it's in a really rural area and I just wasn't getting a strong enough signal to, just to be able to do it. So I don't know if I'll be able to do more there, but it was cool to show. It was much better attended this month than last month, which meant things were going for more than I wanted to pay. But it was still fun to watch and they had some unique things. So I got lucky. I picked up a couple of pieces, some for myself and then some for resale, but that was actually all I wanted to show. Actually, you know what? I'm going to show one more thing because there's not that many people left, but there's one thing that I bought. This is really, these are probably going to go to Goodwill because they're not old, but I don't know what they are. They were just in a box lot. It's this.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like, so I'm trying to figure out how to show this. So it was flat. It was packaged like this in like a little cellophane bag. Again, these are not old. I think these are like relatively brand new, but this seems to pop open and then this little trap door should go into the bottom. And then there's these little tiny cords that are supposed to wrap around these buttons. Now I tried to do this and it was extremely difficult to try and get these in place. So, okay, this was hard. What exactly did I just make? Like, I don't know what this is for. And then this is, see if I can flatten it here. This you can see is sewn, like it's permanently sewn onto the top.
To be on there.
So it's like literally supposed to be attached, but it also it's like, this is like a little pouch of itself. And then it also is supposed to close at the top with this little knot, this little ball, and this little loop here. So it's not big enough for eyeglasses. It could be big enough for like a lighter. Like if this was like, I don't mean stuck in a Tobacciana world, but I mean, there were in some cases, there were things that you would carry your stuff in, but I don't know why this is attached.
So would a wine bottle or a champagne bottle would have fit in there? And then you would.
No, it's like, here's my glass.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like it's scale wise, it's not very big.
No.
So it's like, and the fact that like, I thought it could be a warmer, but then the little trap door doesn't seem to make any sense. So I don't know if it's a jewelry caddy, but there's no way to, like, it's almost unfinished on the inside. I mean, it's not really.
How would you store your jewelry without it getting all?
Yeah, you just have to like wad it in there. And then the same thing with here. It's like you could put like maybe your eyeglasses, maybe. Actually, didn't test it. Let's see if I can put my readers in here. No. That's as far as the glasses go down. So
really weird.
And I have 3 of them.
Okay.
So they're all these different colors. But I literally have no idea what these are.
Weird. They're cool.
Like I didn't buy them for this. And like I said, they'll probably just go to Goodwill because they're not vintage. So there's nothing I'm going to try and sell. Like, but if they were interesting of vintage, like I could throw them into a mystery box or something. But at this point, they just seem to be garbage because I literally don't even know what they are.
It looks like a dunce cap when you fold it out, or like a Pope's hat or something.
Well, and I'm trying to figure out like, why is this attached? Like, is it supposed to look like wings? You know,
But
it's
then
like
why would it move back and forth?
yeah, it's like I think, and these little ribs, there's nothing. It's not like it created another pouch. It's literally just a design, just like that's a design. It's not stitched. It's just I have no clue, and it looks like none of the other people still watching you. Nobody even has a guess.
We've
So this was just
stumped
one of
our
those weird
viewers.
things. So my local Goodwill will get their own little mystery package, and they can figure out what they want to do with those.
Hello, go into Goodwill and look at that and say, what in the world?
Or somebody's going to Goodwill like, oh my God, those are the super rare 1992 edition of some like weird doll collection. And they can't believe their luck that they're going to get them for 99 cents. So
Yep.
I'll make somebody else's day. So anyway, well, thanks again for joining me tonight, Katie. I always appreciate hanging out with you. Appreciate everyone else hanging out. You know, sorry if you were expecting a sale. You know, sales will return at some point. But they need to be fun, and I haven't figured out how to make them fun. So we will figure something out. I'm sure Katie and I will do a joint sale again at some point. But what else do you have coming up on your channel this week, Katie?
I have nothing coming up this week, but we've got some fun things next week that I'm a part of. The Duo Dive, so make sure you tune into that on Patrick's channel at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm also part of the Triptych, which will return on Nate's channel, and we're going to announce that over on Instagram very soon, so make sure you stay tuned for the topic on that. And I'm going to have some fun content this week coming up for you. I am hoping to go over to Tiger Records, and I've really never showcased their store before, and they have just one of the coolest marketing and advertising promotions for their store. They do some great stuff, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that vinyl with you.
Fantastic. Nothing special coming up on mine. I will be part of the Triptych on Sunday, which will be on Nate's channel. That's 8 p.m. Eastern on Soul Nate. And then the Triptych, the Duo Dive will again be on my channel. So I'm doing double duty. We just run my channel last night and then again next week. But then the following 2 weeks, unfortunately, I will not be available because I will be in final tech and final rehearsals for my opening night. So those will be Katie will host then two in a row for her. So we try and alternate back and forth, but we're not too precious about it. And it just made sense that in this case, because I was going to miss a couple, I do 2 in a row. She will then do 2 in a row, and then we'll try and go back in between. So next week's is on shipping. So we hope we have a good interaction with the live chat with people with questions and clarifications and experiences of, you know, how to deal with certain types of shipping and frankenboxing and all the weird stuff that goes with and some of the rules and regulations that people should be aware of. But in fact, the matter is a lot of us aren't. Yeah. And in some cases, we're getting away with it inadvertently. In other cases, we've got examples of where people are getting busted for doing stuff that they thought honorably was correct and then turns out to not fit within the USPS regulations. So we are going to cover all of that on the 23rd. And then I probably, well, like I said, I will also do a drop sale probably over the weekend. Most likely on Sunday, I will do a drop sale of the brooches. So it will be I'll probably just start small. I'll probably do like maybe between 5 and 10. I will announce it on my Instagram channel in advance saying, here are the brooches that are going to be going live. I'll ask people if they want to have a tag, and then I will post them at whatever time and then do the tag. And then see what sells. I've not had a lot of luck selling on Instagram, but a lot of people swear by it. So I'm willing to give it a try because particularly since I'm not doing the live sales as much here on YouTube, see if the Instagram's a better way of doing it. And where people, to be perfectly honest, I was getting tired of the conversation about what's fair on YouTube channels. And so people don't seem to have as much of a fair issue on drop sales. So I'm going to do a drop sale on Instagram and see what happens. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Thanks again, Katie. And we will, can we see the cone again?
Oh, yes.
So yeah, so here's the cone. So again, little trap door that is designed it does fit, and then has the little ball and the little hook to be able to clasp it. So it would sit tight. So it could hold something, but you would effectively be putting it in like this and then having to close it, because this is going to take some finagling to try and get these to close. So, and then attached is this little bat wing that is only opened on one side And it also has a little ball and a little hook closure to just close up this top. But it is attached and it's sewn, like it's permanently attached. So I'm assuming whatever would go in here is complementary to what would go in here.
Yeah.
Like I said, this to me looks like the size of a little Bic lighter, but I can't imagine this would be to hold cigarettes. So it's like, I don't know what the lighter would be holding. And I can't imagine you'd be putting taper candles in here. I mean, I technically guess you could, but they're like to store them, but it's very narrow down here and very wide up here. So it's like that would not be conducive to storing anything.
Yarn? Sewing?
Yes, like it seems like it should be something like candy or something that would just fill it, and then you could close it up. But then, well, then why do you have this? You know, and this one I think would do a pretty good job of closing, although the sides might be open. This one only has a little clasp right here, so anything small would just fall right out. So yeah, it is absolutely a mystery. Maybe I'll post a picture of it on Instagram and see if anybody has any brilliant ideas on it. They're totally contemporary because you can tell the bag, the cellophane that they're in. Like this is modern. Ooh, there's a name on it.
Ooh, okay. So maybe we can look that up.
Sun King. So that's probably just who made the bag. I had not seen that before. Yeah, it's a Sun King resealable. Yeah, so that's probably just who made the bag.
Wow.
Oh, I was all excited there for a minute. Like, oh wait, I might have figured it out. So anyway, it was like that's the weird thing with auctions. Sometimes you just get, and this auction house in particular, he is 100% honest. He's like, yeah, I didn't even know what that was. I just threw those things together. Like they were selling what they think was a soccer net, but he's like, we didn't take it out of the bag. We have no idea. We don't know how big it is. We don't know. And so like you were literally buying something you literally did not know what it was or how big it was. So auctions can be an interesting place.
Yeah, they can. You can pick up a whole variety of items.
Well, great, Brent. I'm always happy when people say they learned something. That is what we're all about. We want to have fun too, but we love when people actually learn stuff as we go. So thanks so much for everyone again for joining us. Again, longer than I anticipated. I have an early morning tomorrow, but I appreciate everyone giving me your time and putting your trust in Trusty Huckster. So have a great night, everybody. We will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.